Made you look. The Gospel Sync in number 52, Matthew 5 verses 13 to 16. Welcome back. Today, we'll be looking at the Gospels of Matthew to see Jesus' tactics on how to make the world look at us and see God in us. So let's dive in. The Gospel, Matthew 5 verses 13 to 16. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its savor, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled by men. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they set it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. My thoughts. Jesus uses two metaphors to describe what his disciples should be like in the world. The first is salt. Salt is meant to flavor and preserve food. As believers, I think our role as salt of the earth is to demonstrate the tastiness of the abundant life that Jesus promises to his disciples. As people look at our lives, they are not only radically different, they are desirable. They should be delicious, so to speak. Are you helping disciples live life in such a way that makes others' mouth water for Jesus, the bread of life? Do they make them thirsty for the living waters? The second metaphor Jesus uses is light. It is interesting that Jesus initially says he is the light of the world. John 8 verse 12. As the sent one, he sends his disciples to do exactly what he was sent to do, illuminate the living God. We have the same mission. Jesus prayed, "As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those also who believe in me through their word." John 17 verses 18 and 20. Both salt and light are attractional elements of the Christian life. They are meant to make people look at us. We are on mission, and these metaphors give us insight as to how we should conduct ourselves in the world. As these principles play out in our lives, they should be attractive to those who are seeking God. Most of the time, Christians are looking for ways to personally apply these two metaphors to their own lives. But it's a whole different story as disciple makers, where we are trying to help others become salt and light. The predominant way I've heard admonitions to disciples is to be a good person, and the world will ask you why you're so good. You know, I've never had a non-Christian come up to me and ask, "Man, you're such a righteous person." What gives? Being a good person is just half the equation. Opening our mouths and having an explanation for that goodness is the other part. If we really want to know how to train our folks to be salt and light in the world, we only need to go as far as Jesus for the perfect example. When we disciple the way Jesus did, we are going to teach people not only how to live their lives as a shining example of God's glory, but we'll also equip them with a message to proclaim that explains why they live that way. I love what I heard Chuck Swindoll say many years ago. Lifestyle and proclamation in witnessing is like the two wings on an airplane. You need both. Lifestyle without proclamation is a mystery. Proclamation without lifestyle is hypocrisy. My story. When we were kids, we used to play a game called Made You Look. We'd make a ring with our thumb and index finger and hold it just out of view of the person we were trying to trick. When the person wondered what we were doing with our hand, they would inevitably look at our gestured ring and we would exclaim, "Made you look." Then we got to punch them in the arm. Real mature, right? But we had a lot of fun making people look. They couldn't help themselves. In a lot of ways, that's how Jesus wants us to live our lives. It's lived in such a way that people just can't help looking at us. And instead of punching them in the arm, we get to give an account for the hope that is in us. 1 Peter 3 verse 15. Once, we were debriefing our time as church at a local fast food restaurant, and I noticed a guy eavesdropping on our conversation. As he sat there in the corner alone, I caught facial expressions that indicated he was being shocked by our conversation. We made him look. I finally asked him to join us, and he enthusiastically jumped up and sat down at our table. We finished our conversation, and I asked the young man why he was so animated as he listened in from the corner. His response blew me away. He said, "I've never seen people talk to one another the way you guys do. It's pretty obvious you have deep friendships and are passing that love on to others." We shared the gospel with him and gave testimony on how Jesus had radically changed our lives. We gave God all the credit for what the young man had seen in our fellowship with one another. That young man joined us from that point on and became a disciple of Jesus. Our action plan. As you evaluate your own strategies to help disciples become salt and light and make the world look, what are you doing to facilitate the process? Here's some ideas from Jesus' ministry. Call them to a life that loves God and people. Matthew 4 verse 19, Mark 12 verses 29 to 31. Model for them what it looks like to be salt and light in action. Matthew 4 verse 23, 9:35, Mark 3 verses 14 to 15. Send them out for practical application of being salt and light. Luke 9 verses 1 to 2, 10:1. Watch them or get feedback on how the evangelistic outing went. Luke 10 verses 18 to 24. Coach them into a lifestyle, not just event evangelism. Matthew 28 verses 18 to 20, Mark 16 verse 15, Acts 1 verse 8. Let's reproduce salt and light in the world by training disciples the way Jesus did and make the world look